like when we talk about history, we never talk about the surrounding periods or of, interactions that occurred as well. So, in 1771, New York passed the Act to confirm certain core vacancies and directing and the maintaining manner of providing deeds to be recorded, which required the judge to meet privately with the wife to confirm her approval. So during that time period, what occurred was that women moving forward, were now being able to have the ability to get different records as well as different agreements in their own name. With not in their own name, but with the approval of their husband. And then 3 years later in Maryland, that occurred, and that was due to a court case of Flans and Leslie Young, which was in where there was a property owner who owned land and wanted to sell it to a couple. Everything was in accordance until it was made aware that it was more or less the wife who wanted to purchase that home, and from then on, it ended up being a interaction where the property owner decided to say every single payment that was made is considered illegitimate or expired because of the fact that they did not have that agreement in place. And I think that kind of is a great place to kind of set the tone to understand that during that time period, although we had not really gotten to I guess what we most relate to as the feminist movement, which happened in the 1970s, that there was movement prior to that. So I just wanted to add that as well. And then next we'll be moving into during the 1800s, women were being given more equality. For example, in the 1809, Connecticut passed a law permitting women to execute a will and other court documents, meaning that you are now being able to see the momentum as far as were considered as far as women were concerned. Mostly white women were concerned to be able to have those different documentations as well as far as property is concerned. And I kind of wanted to set the tone for conversation. Like, do you feel as if that there was movement in a rapid way? Do you feel as if there could have been a little bit of a quicker pace? Do you because during that time period, also, a majority of the U.S. was still rural. So a lot of these rules and regulations that were prevalent and being passed were mostly in the Connecticut area and the New York area. You hadn't really seen their major effects in those the center of the U.S. because of the fact that 7 out of 10 women who even still did have access to being able to moving forward with education, they still chose to stay home. Why do you feel like that is? Do you feel like it was important for women to maintain a stronghold, or what the information still hasn't traveled yet? I just wanted to pose that question.
Yeah, when I think of rural societies, I think about just the also economics of the family at that time, and that people were very dependent on their own people to be able to solidify things. So that may have been an influence, not necessarily not wanting to be industrious on a larger standpoint, but the industry that was created through family in that era.
I think specifically for Black women who were staying home, I don't believe at that particular moment in time we had an issue with the Black man and the feminine movement. From my understanding of history, they didn't really have enough numbers, so then they came and got Black women to be part of their movement. That's just my opinion on it. So there were Black women who were staying home, there were Black women who were working within their Black family. But yeah, we didn't really have the same feminine issues in our community that Caucasians had.
there's like a lot to be said also about the Reconstruction era and how industrious, like, I'm so glad that you said that in that way, Simone, because there's also like when I say working with the family and the industry of the family, it took a lot of pride in this era for Black families to be able to show the bounty. These are very large families, often with more than 7 children. These are families that are working very hard to either educate their children and to be able to say they come from that legacy or create industry with their families that can be passed down. And it's not until we start dealing I would say even up into the Depression, do we see that issue becoming that normal dilemma within the Black family, where we're seeing a lot more separation, a lot of fathers out of the home, a lot of families detaching from their larger families for the industry of the North, and things like that.
I definitely agree, Treasure and Simone. I definitely agree with you as well, Simone, as far as talking about the breaking of the Black family stronghold. Because if you actually look at the statistics or the studies, you'll see that it wasn't until I believe the 1960s, after the War on Poverty, that you saw an extreme decline in the marriage rates of Black families. And then prior to that, there was more one-parent strong households. But then after that, the rise of the feminist movement and how Black women definitely played a part in that as well. Because when I see that the War on Poverty definitely did play that role in pushing the feminist movement a little bit as well. Because I agree, they did need that momentum, they did need that assistance. And I think it's also important to understand that it was everybody played their part in different aspects on how we got to where we are. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for that as well. I want to just kind of forward what you're saying as well with the fact that, in this country, women of color, particularly Black women, did not necessarily have a lot of option when it came to industriousness, whether it was rural, land into other parts of the country. Finding a way and having to create opportunity has always been a part of our experience since we were enslaved. And I think that's very important also when we're discussing what is feminism for all women, because there are major differences in the experiences that cannot be denied and cannot be equated. What it means to prevent someone from ownership over their gender is a way different consideration than someone who's had their own children disowned or taken from them. We're not in the same categories on these issues. So Black women have always been able to be pillars for this country of how to power through situations. I always think about the Delaney sisters, and the Delaney sisters are part of a very large family. These women, one was an educator and the other was a dentist. And these young Black women who had moved pretty far away from their family locale to be in New York were among a very small community of people, Black, white, or other, who was able to keep their businesses sustained and their property sustained during the Depression. So there's so much that the feminist movement of the 60s learned from elders like those two. The Delaney sisters end up living until they're, I believe, 103 and 104 years old. And there's a beautiful book on them. But I remember as a child just the awe of the fact that during the Depression, a Black single woman was able to maintain a viable business as a dentist and maintain her own property with her sister. And her sister, as an educator, was also in a position to stay financially stable even through some of the most devastating times in this country's history. So the feminist movement surely learned from the dexterity of Black women in this country's history, now and always.
And just go ahead, Caitlin.
No, go ahead, Simone. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and guys, don't drag me for this, please. But the feminine movement for the Black community was, in my opinion, one of the worst things to happen to the Black community and the Black family. Because we're not talking about equality issues here. Yes, I mean, now in the modern times, when a female should get paid the same as a man for doing the same job, I'm all for that and for equality. However, when you look at certain laws and legislations that were passed, they were passed for eugenic purposes. IG, if you know who Margaret Sanger is, then you'll know who I'm referring to. Margaret Sanger is one of the founders of Planned Parenthood, what it's now known as, and her best friend is the founder of the pill. Now, these things were pushed forward in bills in Congress all around the world in different places as a woman's movement, a woman's right, a woman's choice to have power over her body. However, when they wrote the letter, and trigger warning, when they wrote the letter to why they wanted these things to be in place, they said they did not want any N babies to be born and for any interbreeding to happen. So this is why they want it in legislation. So there is a lot that people may or may not know about the feminist movement, why there were certain legislations or women's rights pushed originally. Maybe that's not the case now, but originally was for the eugenics of the Black race. And I just have to say that, but thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, I definitely agree with that, Simone. Thank you.
I think Caitlin we're going to actually roll into some of those facts in other episodes.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. We're definitely rolling into those facts a little bit later.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi.
This is the Yoni Whisperer, the Yoni Priestess, the Yoni Goddess. She understands what your pom-pom is saying. This is Nicole.
Thank you, Simone. Go right ahead, Caitlin. I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. No worries. Welcome, Nicole. I'm always excited to have you in the room and always hear your voice of waters against the wind. So no worries. So I'm really excited that you actually spoke about that, Simone, because we will be touching a lot about that on our next part of the series. And just to definitely add a little bit of layer and texture to what you were saying. So in 1960, just 22% of Black families were raised by single families. 50 years later, more than 70% of Black children were raised in single-family parent households. So in every census from 1890 to 1954, Black people were either just as active or more so than whites in labor market during that early period. So there was a definite stronghold between the prior to the official feminist movement in the 1970s, there was a significant stronghold on the Black family being together. And then, as we know, during that time period, the war on poverty had occurred, and that kind of deteriorated a lot of that infrastructure. As far as considering the war on drugs, the incarceration, all of that definitely played a part. The 3 strikes you're out rule. Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. All of those things definitely played a part in how we got to this point in our historical diary. Yeah, historical diary. Yeah. Don't get me started on the war on drugs. Yeah. Get me started on that. So, from that, I also do want to open up the conversation. It's like, do you feel as if women, and I mean this as a whole, because I want to talk about white women, I want to talk about Black women, I want to talk about Latino women, I want to talk about all women. Do you feel as if that we are being led into a society of what are we choosing? Are we choosing what we want feminism to be, or are we being led as far as what we consider feminism to be? Because we've all definitely come to the conclusion that we all have had different experiences as far as what feminism is, right? Because based on the facts we saw that although yes, white women were going through their own personal feminist movement and journey within their life. They were also getting the property rights that they were required. But also during that time period, we Black people were a part of that property agreement. And then we move into Black families becoming stronger. Then we play the war on drugs. Then we also have to acknowledge the fact that immigration was occurring during that time as well. So then you also did have that experience where people of other cultures were coming to a country where they were trying to build their lives, and also having to wear that, I guess, that double hat of being a mom and a strong individual within the household. And I can definitely resonate with that. My family's from Haiti, so your mom was a nurse, but she definitely cooked dinner. So, being that layer of what feminism is considered, because when I think about feminism, I don't think about it as just one linear thing. I think that there are many avenues and how we got there. And I think that some of them are culturally guided. I think that some of them are governmentally guided, and some of them are definitely politically guided. So I want to know which one do you guys resonate with more a little bit? Because I think mine is definitely culturally guided.
If I may speak on that, I see a little bit of from my standpoint, but one of the things that I find to be very rampant in this day and age is how feminism has evolved to the point that the family unit is completely eroded. I take the stance that feminism has evolved to the point that there's even a feminization of men that is happening by creating this victim mentality, and it eased its way in through domestic violence laws as well. And I'm not saying that domestic violence laws don't serve its purpose, but we can see how something so small that was put in place to protect women can evolve and grow on its own and take on a certain personality based on the collective consciousness of wounded women. And like Simone mentioned, this may trigger a lot of people who might be here who have a certain position or a certain stance. And like I said, that's just my viewpoint, especially as a West Indian American living in the West Indies but owned by the American flag. There are a lot of things that I see, and even in my culture where feminism is slowly infiltrating it and eroding what was the norm in my culture as a Virgin Islander, as a West Indian woman. It's really baffling how this thing has taken on a life of its own, and it's getting so big that to me it has become a humongous monster that is completely in my viewpoint, eroding and eliminating the family unit. I mean, that's just my position on it. I'm not knocking anybody else's position, but that's just my view and my position on feminism.
I agree with that, Nicole. I feel as if, and I definitely relate as, being a Caribbean American. I think that in Caribbean culture, women were always strong. Like in those culture, in most cultures, women were always considered strong. I don't think that we were ever considered weak. I think that our jobs were considered different than that of the male.
Right.
And I think as society became more, I guess when it became more of a conversational piece where we advance as technology advanced, and, you know, obviously growth is natural and that's always going to happen. I think that where we kind of took a turn is where we thought it was a piece for the government essentially to get involved and push what they feel is a necessary conversation, because women were always strong. We were always the healers. We were always the taker cares of the family. We were always the nurturers. We always had that balance. And I think that femininity and masculinity are two that need to work intertwined in balance. One cannot exist without the other. So,
yeah, and I think the feminine movement, I think, has defeminized women. And what I mean by that is, like, spiritually, energetically, where there's a lot of us who are more dominant and it has that masculine energy about us. We're not in touch with our womb space, our divine femininity, right?
Because they're co-opting masculine energy.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
And then, you know, we're CEOs, which is great, and we're all these businesswomen. We have our businesses, and we're taking that same energy from the boardroom, that masculine energy, that dominant energy, and we're taking it into our relationships. And it just does not correlate over there. And then you find some of these women who are making 6-8 figures, and they end up on dating shows, because they're not in touch with that feminine energy, that, you know, that divine energy that we naturally have, right? Because if everything, you know, there's yin yang, there's masculine and feminine energy. I'm not even talking about like sexual, how you're born, but your feminine divinity. And I think there's a lot of women who have lost touch with that because of the quote unquote feminine movement, which has perpetuated the breakdown of the family system. And in America, you have the welfare system. In England, you have the benefit system. And this is why globally, in all different, even different race groups, you have the breakdown of the family unit. And that's just my opinion.
I see parts of where I agree with that, Simone. And I don't think I agree with you as far as women in Western society, for sure, definitely bringing not understanding the balance of that masculine and that feminine energy, because the way that women in Western culture base, I guess, masculinity is monetized, right? Based off of money, right? That is the source of feasible masculine energy. I personally feel as if. And I agree with you, women are taking that home, but I also feel like in other countries outside of the U.S., there are women who are ideal to be heads of their households, but in partnership with men, and not even heads of their households, as I guess the point I'm trying to make overall is, in the West, there definitely is a linear perspective as far as that if you are financially more off or wealthy or do have more advancements than that of your male counterpart, that is the source of your masculine energy. And I disagree, because I feel like if you could still be a power top CEO and still, you know, make your money and still come home and be a feminine woman. You just have to learn that dichotomy within yourself in order to have that balance. But I think that it is possible.
It's definitely possible. I just think the balance in some people have been lost.
Or they just never knew how to occupy their feminine. Because I can personally speak from a personal standpoint. I grew up in a female-dominated household. There was no masculine presence. And my mom projected her fears based on her own relationship experiences that were failures. And how do I say this? Chose to live a lifestyle that was contrary to the norm of what relationships would look like back then, and was grooming me to follow that path because it was just easier to protect your heart by sourcing your life from something that you're not fully able to occupy. Sourcing your life from an essence that is only unreserved, in my opinion, for fight or flight responses. And this is why it is being reflected, and I agree with you, Simone, on this, is that it is being reflected on women who are powerful in the boardroom, powerful in their profession, but because they are occupying that sphere of influence that is only a smidget of what is really and truly within them for emergency situations, they become hyper adrenalized because they are constantly tapping in to the stress response, which is why it ends up reflecting in different health issues, different physicality issues. Like, for example, one of the telltale signs of a woman who is constantly hyperadrenalized, she loses her hair because she's accessing a realm of influence that is not hers to fully occupy. And if she stays there and she does not know how to come back home to her feminine, because she was never taught to be comfortable and to view that aspect of her as sacred and important, and she views that as being weak in her profession, then this is the monster we have created in terms of what we are teaching our daughters. And I mean, I have to agree with Simone on this, because I am of the position, if you show up physically female, then you are inherently feminine. If you show up physically and wholly and completely male, then you are inherently masculine. And you should be occupying that full essence. And that's just my opinion. A lot of people will have different perspectives. But from the moment I have made that change, from tapping in to an essence that is not mine to occupy, and learn to source my life fully from my feminine, I have seen a complete difference in how my life is since choosing to do that. And I'm done speaking.
And just really quickly, I think we see feminine energy as a weakness, but it's like the most powerful energy in the entire universe. That feminine energy, like, oh, baby, when you tap into that energy, like literally the world's your oyster. You unlock everything. It's like universal secrets when you tap into your source energy. And it's seen as a weakness sometimes, but that divinity, that energy is so powerful. Like literally, even if you don't ever want to have a child, which is perfectly fine, we have a portal, like we're carrying around, walking with, to another universe. Like we are doorways, we are keepers and gateways to doorways of different universes by our womb space. Even when you've had a hysterectomy and your womb's still removed, you still have that energy within you. So we're just, hey, women, all the women in the room, we're great.
I really appreciate this correspondence just now, because I see both perspectives, and I would say from my own experience, I agree as well that I have grown up in a world where I was definitely hyper-adrenalized and made to think that I needed to be not only magical, but like methodically on top of everything. And as a child, I knew stress. Like, I felt this need to be the balance of everything by myself. And it's taken me many, 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 many years to realize that the balance that I need to be is in my own energy. I don't have to actually be and operate from such force and masculinity and authority over everything. I have another energy that works equally, if not more miraculously, that I can come to. And in tapping into femininity as the source, as Simone said, in tapping into the fact that the femininity opens up the imagination, opens up the vision board for you to be able to create. It's way more than having to do. It's not a matter of doing, it becomes a matter of being. And I think that we, especially as women of color, have to really check where we understand self-worth comes from. Because we do have these ancestral messages and these things that have been passed through many generations of having to show and prove. And I used to live by the idea of having to show and prove my worth. Very masculine energy, very much like a war with everything. And I don't achieve from being at war with everything. I don't grow from that. I don't create more money from that. Being in distress and in destroyer mode all day long was destroying me. It wasn't destroying anything but my own body. So I think we now, you asked something earlier, Caitlin, about, what side are we on? And I think that this is a great conversation because we need to evaluate which side we want to go to, as we are now also keepers of the next phase of influence, right? So we have to be decisive about what really does show and prove. We are actually, even in this space, a bunch of powerful people are creating even more power in this connection of the feminine. So it's just so much more exploration and adventure for me in the divine feminine space than in the force of logic and trying to make things happen instead of believing things happening. Faith is a woman, faith is a womb. And so many societies and so many people have survived not through logic but through faith. So I too really do believe that divine feminine energy is the strongest source in my life.
Thank you, Treasure, for adding that. And thank you guys, Simone, Nicole. Oh my gosh, that was a great conversation to just listen to and be a part of. So before we jump to the next portion, where I did want to touch a little bit about the separation of, because as we look at the trajectory of history, as women do gain, or white women do tend to gain more of their political freedoms, do you believe that was the initial beginning of the separation of the womb space, and that people from other cultures, Black people as well as immigrant people, essentially fell to that folly? Because, as we did mention, the stronghold was the Black family. But before we jump into that, I did actually wanted to say hey to Akambakani and Tammy as well, and just ask them what insights they would have on the conversation that we're having today. So, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Greetings, Caitlin. Greetings, everybody on the stage. Thank you, Sister Nicole, for letting me come up. Me and Sister Nicole, we have the same spiritual teacher, and so I pretty much I am in line with what Sister Nicole was sharing, and you sisters as well. I just wanted to bring in some of my women studies, things that I learned in college, because I would like to bring in some grace. As a ex-feminist, and I never call myself a feminist, but after diving into my feminine studies, I realized how much of covert and subversive feminist ideas get embedded in my psychology without even knowing, from things like going to women's studies and going to college and being a part of this Western world that we live in. And I've had to come to terms with the fact that I've had those ideas in me, and now I have to kind of just look at them and then say thank you for what they brought in my life, and then just eliminate them. But before all that, I have been on a journey of bringing grace to my own family, the lineage of women that brought me to where I am. And the same, I think, should be applied for the feminist women, but even the ones that call themselves overtly feminist, because the feminist movement didn't start out the way it is. It just happened to be because, it started with the women's movement, and what they wanted was changes for a changing world. Right, the men were leaving to war, and now the fathers were taken out, and there was a space that was missing that had to be filled by the women. So what happened was just things of the vine, right? Because for a reason we're here. Because maybe as women we forgot what it was to appreciate men. Maybe we had to turn to that side of our polarity, to go over there and learn that how they move and how they act and how they celebrate themselves as men is not for women. Because as women, when we were forced into the work field, we desired to have all the accolades that men get when they're in their own sphere. And by generation, we forgot our position. We forgot how women are truly celebrated in the home, how women find their fulfillment. All of that was lost because we've lost so many things, but now it's an invitation to return. And me being a woman who's been on both sides of the coin, where I've said many times that I don't need a man, and I didn't want to get married, and I didn't want children because I was in that career-minded phase. And now being on this side where I find so much fulfillment in my family, and I see the importance of having a stable home, not only the importance for my children, but the importance for society. Because to build a good community, we need to have good families and good standards and good values. And that doesn't come through the men, that comes through the women, because the women is the one who stays at home and teach the children. So there's a returning that's happening, and it's happening little by little. And we have to, as women who are in their feminine and know what it is to be embodied, take our responsibility to live it for the women who are up and coming, the young ones that are so confused in these days and times that they don't know. They really don't know. And that's the only crime. They just don't know. So it's our responsibility to have grace for our elders and grace for the young ones that are coming up. And the only way we can do that is by modeling what it is to be feminine, and to model by having good relationships with men, and modeling what it is to be a good mother for our children, and what that looks and feels like, so they can come to us and ask us, what is it that you're doing? And start from there. Thank you for the time. That's all I wanted to share.
Thank you for that. Actually, I wanted to step in and say something. I agree 100% with some of the things that you said there. Not that I disagree with any. I'm just pointing out the ones that I wholeheartedly agree with, as far as balance and needing both energies to create and nurture. I did want you guys to know that this is a series of different topics, but based on light timelines. So we don't want you guys to think that this is a summation of what we think feminism is, because we're going to go back. And we hope that you guys can join us for every one of these conversations, because as you see, we're going to unfold different layers of how we got to this current. Right now, we're actually more current than where we're going to be in other conversations. So we will go back to mysticism and magic and being deemed as a witch and being stoned. And that whole Nyabingi revolution, where women were seen as toxic by men and rejected for a very long time because of their powers. So we're going to go through a lot of these different motions, not in an exact order. So I don't want anyone to think that whatever we're speaking about now are our and I'm just speaking for me and Caitlin, our definite views. This is an open conversation where we're going to explore all of these different issues, but on a staggering timeline.
Yeah, guys, when we talk about where women have been throughout history, it's a very vast and deep topic, and it involves political standpoints as well as spiritual standpoints as well. So we're definitely going to divulge into all of them. So right now, we're definitely going to just talk about the surface of what happened in the U.S., because I feel like whenever we're talking about information, a lot of it is surrounding the U.S. So I thought that would be a great place for us to start, as far as how people had immigrated how immigration had increased during that time, as well as the where segregation had occurred with Black families, as well as where our counterparts, our Caucasian and white counterparts, were at their specific time periods as well, because history is interchanging. Like a lot of situations have intertwined. Just like in this historical time period, we're going through a lot of different scenarios at the same time. That definitely happened in the past as well. So I think it's important just to give a visual landscape of where everybody was at. You know, how did every specific individual or different group see things during that time. So, but I definitely appreciated all of your input as well. Please tell me if I'm saying your name correctly.
Yeah, you said it right, Akambakani. Well, you can call me
Akambakani. Yeah. Yes. Okay, Akambakani. Okay, cool. Yes. Okay, cool. Yes, I definitely appreciate your insight as well as your personal perspective, because that adds us layer and textures to show that these are situations that is occurring, and I'm very happy for you and your family, and that you were able to kind of build that stronghold together. And I definitely heard the baby in the background, so aw. As well. So Tammy, welcome on stage. I would love to hear your insight and input on the conversation at hand. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Caitlin. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Beautiful risings.
Hey.
Yes, I just love that you're touching on all this. So, whenever these types of topics come in, ping me away, because I am here for it all. Yeah, we can definitely go into the separation of the people, but we won't go there, not in the length of time that is needed, but definitely it is at the root of a separation of the people. We live in a society to where, women think they can actually purchase femininity, breasts, lips, buttocks, all of that, and it's been groomed that you can buy your femininity. So yes, if we're talking about where we are today in the state of being in femininity, it has been just degraded so horribly. So these topics are definitely needed. They are a must. I grew up raised by a man, all right? But here's the beautiful thing about it. Me not having a woman in the home. As a child, as a young girl, I always felt like, all my other girlfriends had their mother in the home, but a lot of their fathers were gone. So I always embraced that blessing of being raised by a man, because it gave me two total flip sides of the coin. But the most beautifulest thing of the coin that my father brought to the table for me was to teach three girls, me and my sisters, how to embrace their femininity. And believe me, he was all man, honey. He was all man, okay? He kept him some queens, shall I say less, okay? But he instilled in us at very young ages the importance of the beauty of our crowns. You know, he instilled in us to feel good about how we looked from our heads to our toes in the best way that he could, because he was brought up in a home full of beautiful women that were forced to be the leaders of the home due to the separation of our people. So me growing up with that has always gave me a real easy flair to just carry it around. You know, you can smell it off me, all right, my femininity. And I've always embraced it. But, of course, I had, you know, friends that, you know, everybody is their own person. And I was always the friend who would try to do their hair and make it pretty and just do all of those things to help support in their femininity. We lose touch of it. You know, life can just throw us things, give us these responsibilities as single mothers, as working women, and it could throw us off our femininity. That is just a fact, because we're forced to rise up in a way that, in true essence, we were never really meant to rise to that extreme. We were forced into it, okay? Harriet Tubman style, right? So knowing this, and this is my blessing and this is my gratitude of it, knowing this has always kept me in my femininity. It's made me actually have more of a heightened sense of being even attracted to women in my life that just naturally possess that, you know, and that's a beautiful thing right there. You know, when you can have it yourself and love to be able to be around other women that do it, that right there is a jewel in itself. So I just wanted to share that, you know, and just all in the name of remembrance of a woman's intuition is feminine energy. It's feminine energy. So listening to the femininity from within your core, your womb space, that is something that not only we can embrace, but the men should embrace it too. This is Tammy, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everybody, so far. This has been such a great conversation, I must say. I appreciate Treasure, Simone, and Nicole for showing up for the team as usual. I'm not going to get this right. And I had practice, too. Akambakani. Did I do that? I did.
Perfectly. Thank you.
And Tammy, thank you so much, guys, for showing up for this conversation. And like I said, this is a continuous conversation. We're going to go deep, guys. We are going to go back so many places when it comes to, we're going to go back to Greeks. We're going to go back to the island of Lesbos. We're going different places, okay? So I want you guys to know what's in store for this consider it a sitcom, and this is just episode number 1.
I think this is such a great way to have this conversation too, and I would just ask everybody, if you know friends that would appreciate these kinds of conversations, please make sure that they follow Observing Herbs and that they follow all of the moderators, because all of the moderators are regularly hosting events like this that are just as powerful. And just like Tammy had said, it'll be much easier for you and your community to find this information and to extend and into the Observing Herbs community, just, link up. We learn a lot from oral tradition. So I want to thank you, Caitlin, for bringing, at the end of Women's History Month, a tradition that you're starting in this space in your own way of bringing us together to talk about the history of all of our mothers, all of their experiences. And I just wanted to say, because there's something powerful that Akaba Kani had mentioned and then Tammy had mentioned, we should also be mindful whenever we're talking about history to remember these are people. And just like us, we've never had one singular philosophy for the whole story. We learn over time, and that there are many modalities to feminism. I like to think of the Madama, which in many cultures is known more as the house mother or the mammy, and is often looked at as someone who's in a position of being without. But in my cultural context, she's who you go to get the money. She's who you go to get the medicine. She's who you go to bring success towards your life. So we have to understand that there's a lot of different archetypes of strength throughout history. So when we're discussing them, we're never diminishing them to our current mentalities and perspectives. There were so many modalities to how we've used sexuality, how we've used our silence, how we've used our voice. So just like keep that in mind, to be open-minded as these conversations, because they're gonna be kind of sensitive, Word up.
And please feel free to raise your hands, guys, and come up and speak with us. You can come up, share your opinions, your thoughts, because even if we disagree, we still want to hear your opinions. So please come up and share your opinions on anything that we're discussing. Thank you.
Yes, I definitely agree. We are definitely going to be going on some vast topics, and I definitely also agree I want everyone to feel comfortable to come up as well and have conversation. Thank you for that, Simone. So now that we all have kind of been aware of the fact that we've all had different experiences on where feminism has taken us, do you feel as if you are being led in a situation that it's comfortable, or is it causing more divide? Do you feel like the rise in the independence of women has provided another layer of security, or has it created more of just more of a competitive environment?
I didn't want to be the first one to get into it, but I think that my heart says that we are at a really great time in history because we are able to evaluate history and understand our impact on the future. With that being said, we get to define what we are, and we have these conversations to set that authority of ourselves. I tell myself every day, I am God's choice. So I'm not here to be selected or appropriated according to the current culture and the ways of the world in this moment. No, to be historic is to go further than what is a norm. So I think challenging our norms is a good thing. I think it's a very good thing that a lot of the young women are so tapped into the fact that there's divinity in their sexuality. I also think that requires an eldership on many of our parts to be able to explain that multiplicity of the spiritual. So it becomes a matter now of, well, what role are we choosing to play? Nothing is happening to us. We are the creators. So I think we know that a lot better than maybe we've ever been able to articulate in groups and collectives like this before. So we can really do whatever and have many perspectives in that regard as well. But I don't think we're defined by what the systems of other people's ownership, the systems of other people's patriarchies. I think we have learned how to evolve economically beyond that. Even when you look at a lot of the campaigns in Africa, there's a large commitment to educating young girls in Africa, because we know that when a woman is educated, a society is provided for. So we are turning back to our folkloric ways, but we have a wider world to consider, so we have to define it. It's not going to happen to us, in my opinion.
Thank you for that, Treasure. I think that was beautiful and eloquently put. I agree. If women, the choice to educate ourselves is a choice to educate everyone, because women are usually the educators of societies. We are the nurturers. We are the caretakers. What we instill in our children is what is fruits of our labor. So I agree with that. So I know we weren't going to keep this chat open for about an hour, but I do welcome anyone to want to come on stage, as well as have any thoughts or feelings or any opinions as well just to come on stage. Enjoy.
I know I wanted to say one more thing. So as I said before, and in general, thank you guys for joining us. Please follow that club with the greenhouse at the top. Hit that to follow the club. Sorry. To stay on top of this conversation. Like I said a few minutes ago, this is an ongoing conversation and understanding about the womb. One of the things that I learned from Nicole is that the womb and the throat are immensely connected. And through co-conversation from our throat chakras to our root chakras, we will journey through praising the womb by engaging in full episodes of its history and powers. One of the things that Caitlin said earlier, which I wrote down, I don't think she knows, is this is the first day of the Libra moon, and it's a great day to record some stuff. So those of you with us today will be part of a greater understanding, and I'm so happy to have you guys join us. This is actually the perfect way to end off Women's History Month, because we're going to keep it going.
Yes, and I'm super excited. So just to let you guys know about the topics that we're going to be talking about for our next part of this series, we're going to be talking a little bit about the father of abortion, Lawrence Lauder, the growth of feminism, as well as the part that Cosmopolitan magazine had played in feminism during that time period of the 1970s. So I'm really excited to have that kind of conversation, just because it adds a lot of more layers, and it talks a little bit more about how we are now entering a space of the policing of the womb to a degree, and the coercion of thought process. So really excited. I don't know if anyone else had any last thoughts that they wanted to add after this chat today before we go ahead and close out. But also, be sure to follow all the moderators, or actually just everyone on stage, because we all added to this conversation today. And I'm Caitlin, and I'm done speaking.
Nicole has an upcoming course on the 26th of April, so check her out for that. Treasure has a womb health room that she does. Oh gosh, when is it, Treasure?
Wednesday.
Wombs of Wealth. We have several dates, so if you are interested, Wombs of Wealth is a major ally of Observing Herbs. Thank you so much, Simone, for that. We meet for sensual celibacy on Wednesday nights at 9. We also have early morning moaning meditations called Madrugada Moaning on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I also have a few great weekend treats like Womb Stones, which I co-host with Nicole on Friday afternoons. So please follow the group so you can keep up. We're all a family here.
And thank you, Simone. I guess I'll take the opportunity to explain a little bit further. The course that is coming up next month on April 26th is the Full Moon in Scorpio Custom Uni Steam Blend Creation course for prosperity. where we will be tapping into the prosperous energies of the Taurus season and harnessing those prosperous energies with the full moon in Scorpio to attract prosperity in our lives and our wombs for 2021. If you would like more information, please feel free to click the link in my Instagram bio for more information on the course. Thank you so much.
And here on Observing Dr. Carol, autoimmune herbs. And then on Wednesday, we have magic herbs, astrology, and mysticism. And then on Friday, we have herbs for digestion. And we have rooms almost every single day of the week here on Observing Herbs with amazing herbalists, doctors of all different fields, gastro doctors, cancer doctors, all different people and different fields. So definitely, if you don't want to miss all of these great things, please click that greenhouse, Observing Herbs. And from next week, I'll be doing affirmation rooms every day for love, abundance, finances, healing. So if you want that, then if you click the Nature Restore house thing in my profile and follow that, you'll be able to get those affirmations. And somebody has their hand up. Hi, Sean.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
What's up, Sean?
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
We heard you. Could you explain more to help us? How long has this been happening? What are the side effects that you're experiencing because of this? And just give us more context.
Absolutely. So basically, I've been dealing with this for about a year, with dealing with low energy, kind of digestive issues. Got to take a nap like I'm not gonna say every hour, but like I usually crash throughout the PM hours and then can't really sleep at night. I've been taking things like ashwagandha and stuff like that, but I heard if you have low cortisol, it can actually make it worse. Can't really
have Addison's disease at all?
No, I don't have any of that.
Have you been tested for that at all?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So I've been to every ER doctor, seen every doctor, and everything comes back normal. The labs come back normal, stuff like that. But just the normalness of when I did a 6-point, I think saliva test, I have lows throughout the day, and like usually around nighttime, then I kind of get a little peak as far as what's keeping me up at night. Just not being able to handle the everyday stresses. My stress level is, it seems like my body can't handle it like it used to.
Okay, so my question is, do you have any sugar, caffeine, or processed foods in your diet would be my first question. And my second question is, stress has a direct correlation with low cortisol levels.
I try to stay away from anything that has sugar, carbs. I try to do like a high fat, salmon, mostly veggies, mostly. I kind of stay away from processed food. I don't do any outside food like fast food or anything like that. I try to cook rice, brown rice, black beans, stuff like that. So I don't think the sugar, I think I have a problem with that because every time I go, my sugar levels are fine when I go to the ER, so I don't think that's really an issue for me. The stress, I think that may be an issue because I deal with, I'm a manager at 2 hotels as far as, in the Orlando area, so I do a lot of, stressful events and stuff like that, so I think that may be a cause, but I'm just not really too sure.
If I may ask, Sean, good afternoon. What are your testosterone levels like? Are they good? Do they need improvement? Has any testing been done to check on your testosterone levels?
The free testosterone, it actually came back normal.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And when you mean normal, do you know the exact number they came back? Because a doctor's normal isn't necessarily a normal. It means it in the normal range. It could be very low, but within the normal range.
It was a little bit on the low side, but it fit the spectrum. So I want to say it's not optimal.
Aha. I think we found the culprit. Simone,
Right.
what do you think? Yeah. I think because I it's so interesting because it is scientifically proven, and I'm not trying to pitch race here, but it is scientifically proven that black men, out of most men of other races, naturally have higher testosterone levels, and something just kept saying his testosterone levels might be low. And that is what is affecting that, because your testosterone, if they are within adequate normal range, it would support your cortisol and your adrenaline as it should, because you're a man. So you have to look into supporting your testosterone.
Absolutely. So do you have any suggestions for herbs that would help support the testosterone levels?
I have suggestions as to what foods you can consume to support your body in releasing excess estrogen, as well as to support the boosting naturally of your testosterone levels. Foods such as pine nuts, Brazilian nuts, foods that have that good cholesterol, so eggs, ensuring that you're not in a constant hostile environment where there's a lot of arguing, because believe it or not, from an emotional standpoint, if you are in a environment when there's a lot of constant arguing, that can quickly diminish your testosterone, because it's a level of emotional stress that the men cannot handle naturally, which is why men do not like nagging women, because that in his ear all the time kills his testosterone levels. Additionally, eliminating all plastics out of your household and the foods that are contained in them, because you are exposed to xenoestrogens, which is attacking your testosterone. Foods that support the body in naturally releasing excess estrogen is like cruciferous vegetables. There is also a supplement that can be taken in pure encapsulation form, known as DIM Pro, the Pure Encapsulation brand, DIMPRO. It is a natural supplement that you can take to support your body in releasing the excess estrogen. You will, if you go that route of taking this supplement, you will initially experience a dip in your testosterone because it is doing the work, and then there'll be a shift and an adjustment. And that's what I can offer really right now, because I'm getting ready to go into a meeting. But I am suspecting that your testosterone levels is the issue here, and you need to focus on boosting your testosterone levels, ensuring that you're getting adequate rest as well. Is like really important.
And just on the rest part, so what I would say is, for the next maybe 3 months, try to aim to go to bed at 9 p.m. And I know that might sound early, but try to have a set routine. And also what I would say is eat magnesium-rich foods, so leafy greens, fatty fish, avocado, salt, nuts, seed, linguines. Eliminate all caffeine. Caffeine definitely is not something that you can have with this problem right now. It's just going to make it worse. And also, if you have like a bath in your house, even if you have a shower, what I would recommend you doing is get like some Epsom salt and put into the bath with a few drops of like an essential oil of your choice. So what this will do is help with your magnesium stores, because normally what you find is people who are low in what you're low in, and also their testosterone levels are low, they're also low in magnesium. So this is why you put the Epsom salt bath every evening if you can. If you can't do it every evening, do it a few times a week as well. And also avoid intermittent fasting or super low carb diet, because what this is not going to help you at all, and it will give you more issues than good. So whatever essential oils that you find are helpful to you, you can do. There's like rhodiola, which is something that you could take. Are you on any medications at the moment?
No, not any.
Yes, those are some of the things that I would say. Ashwagandha can be good, but it can have an impact if taken too much. But you could a mix that I normally for like adrenal tonics and stuff. A mix I normally use is ashwagandha, licorice root, and rhodiola together, and it's really calming for the body. That's the mix that I've normally used together. But this is definitely stress. You have to try to help with your stress. So if that's taking a diffuser to work if possible, or having a little essential roll-on body in your arm, taking CBD oil to help kind of calm yourself when you are very stressed, which I know because you are feeling tired could make you feel more tired. But so maybe that's what a topical one might be good for you, or if there's an essential oil that's calming to you, if you just get a few, so like lavender, ylang, just different ones to see what kind of scent that you like, and just you can have the ones that come in little roller bottles, put that on your wrist and smell that as well. I would say get your cortisol levels checked very regular, because they can change as well. And by adding these things into the diet, like the avocados that we've said, and things like this, you exercising as well, avoiding sugars, no processed change to the diet, it should definitely help with your cortisol levels. And the fact that they haven't given you medication or cortisol injections means that your levels are low, but not severely low, because normally what they suggest is giving you cortisol injections as well. So have your sleep schedule. So 9 p.m. every night. Before then, you don't, let's just say, don't eat 2 hours before. Have a routine where you have your bath, you play your little kind of nice relaxation music, and no screen time beforehand. So if you can try to, as best as possible, stay off your phone before bed, because it has a blue light in it that disrupts your melatonin, which is something that rises, that helps you sleep at night. So do that regularly. Also grapefruit. Have a lot of grapefruit. What this does, the citrus in that, it breaks down enzymes that limit cortisol productions. So adding grapefruit definitely will help to boost your adrenal glands and help to boost cortisol production. Licorice supplements as well inhibit the enzyme that breaks down cortisol in your body. So having this will rise cortisol levels as well. These are kind of the things I can think of at the top of my head right now. I hope that helped.
It actually did. So I've been taking notes as you ladies was giving me this information. So I really, 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 really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I just want to sneak in here and just say bye to everyone, and also to Nicole. Just let her know. She already knows I'm super excited to be with her in April. And Jessica is in the audience. I had a talk with her last night, and I just wanted to let Miss Nicole know Jessica wants you to know that she's going to be with us in April too. So thank you, and everyone have a good day.
Everybody needs to be there in April, so everybody book Nicole. Yes. I can't recommend her enough. There's only a few people in this world I would trust with my lady areas. Treasure, Nicole, some of them, and
actually going to leave. I have a meeting that's about to start, but Caitlin, once again, thank you so much. Gina, thank you. Simone, Nicole, Akambakani, Tammy, and Sean, and everybody in the audience. It was really a productive conversation today.
Thank you guys for joining us. I have to jump off too. I wanted to say we'll be back Wednesday, and I want to say around the same time. I'm not really sure if we're going to keep that time, but we'll see. But I look forward to this saga continuing. We'll have a better outline of what some of the topics are that we'll cover, so you guys can know in advance. And I believe Caitlin has a recap for today, a light recap. And in that recap, we're going to include some questions that we covered today that you guys can answer on a different platform. You can answer them anonymously. It would be great if you put your Clubhouse name, which you don't have to. And this is just to keep you guys involved in the conversation, so that when we open up the next room, we can also include your answers in some of our review questions.
Yes, super excited about that. So please be sure to go ahead and fill that out. Thank you guys, and thank you everyone in the room for spending the time to have this conversation. We really appreciate it. Did anyone else have any last minute things they would like to say before we close out? All right, then thank you guys, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Have a good day, guys, and thanks again. Hello?